So to kind of kick it off and tell you about Pencils of Promise, we're an international education organization that works with local governments on their public primary school systems. Can you hear me still? Okay. Sorry. We exist because 250 million students of primary school age lack basic reading, writing, and math skills, and we believe that we can change that through long-term systemic change. Can you still hear me? I'm sorry. So traditionally, we're known as a school building organization. Over the past 8 years, we've built over 350 schools across Ghana, Guatemala, Nicaragua, and Laos. And currently, we're working more with education ministries in order to get programming within those schools. So that's been an effort over the past 3 years, because we believe that building a school is really just the first initial handshake with local communities in order to build trust, and that we need to focus on what's happening within these schools to have greater impact. Ooh, wow, sorry. All right, so I'm going to be talking about our teacher support program. This is our most successful program to date, and about the different tech systems and data systems that surround this program. So we believe in implementing a teacher support program because of the exponential impact that investing resources and tools into teachers is going to have. They're going to teach students for generations to come, and we really think that this is our ideal treatment group rather than addressing students directly. So the program actually doesn't touch curriculum because we're working in public school systems. We're working with government-based curriculum. However, we are implementing new teaching methodologies and teaching teachers how to be better at their job within the classroom. So what this looks like is normal teacher support programs involve a number of different community-based workshops. So we're doing community-based workshops twice a year, but in addition to that, we're doing one-to-one individualized coaching sessions with teachers in order to ensure that they're keeping up all of the learnings that they are being taught in the workshops. And this happens twice a month with each teacher. In addition, we incorporate an e-reader model so that we're able to deliver over 100 books to each student and teacher in the classroom, because of course, teaching them these methodologies only goes so far. They need the tools within the classroom in order to carry that forward. Something really exciting is in our first year of programming in Ghana, our 2014 to 2015 school year, 5.3 times as many students reached proficiency levels as compared to control groups. This proficiency is defined as being able to read 45 words or more per minute by the end of 3rd grade. So we saw huge impact in our first year, and we're really excited about it. So the innovative part of this program is the technology behind data collection. If we're not paying attention to our monitoring evaluation data and really taking the learnings from that to infuse that in the next year's program, then we're not really doing this program justice. So we have done this a few different ways. One of them is tablet-based reading assessments. So we're working with UNAID's early grade reading assessment, the EGRA test, that we administer pre-intervention and post-intervention, the beginning and the end of the school year. And we've moved this to a tablet-based tool called Tangerine, developed by Research Triangle International. And this allows someone like Jorge, pictured here, our Guatemala country director, to sit in front of a student and administer the test on a tablet, which means more accurate data collection and faster data collection. Moving this to a tablet-based collection actually eliminated the time spent by 30% for our staff on the ground. So it allows us to see what's happening much quicker, and again, it's so much more accurate than when they did this on paper. The EGRA is kind of a complex test in which we time different portions of a student's ability to answer the questions, and if they get certain questions wrong on certain sections, the next section is skipped. So as you can imagine, doing that with paper and a timer is really hard on our staff who are local to each country and not necessarily specialized in that, and moving that to a tech-based solution really helped. Another part of that is digital data collection. So we have over 37 forms for monitoring evaluation within each country, and we're starting to digitize all of these forms. So they're able to collect this data offline, and an example of that is we just moved our attendance data collection form onto a tablet-based solution, and that form is collected over 2,000 times in each country each school year. So not only is it eliminating paper, but it's allowing us to analyze that much quicker, and we don't have to have staff on the ground who are specialized in just data entry, going back to the country or the office in each country and entering that. And then kind of behind all of this is a centralized database platform. So we've actually used Salesforce and built out a custom impact tracking solution in order to centralize all of this data. We consider ourselves an emergent learning organization. So you kind of heard about this during the keynote, but of course we like to set 1 to 3 year goals, but we're constantly keeping our eye on the data and the outcomes. And if we see that our goals are not kind of on par with what is to come, then we will adjust to those goals. We are looking at publishing analysis reports. If you go to our reporting page right now on our website, you'll see our Ghana TS Teacher Support Analysis Report that describes this 5.3% increase. But these are really, really detailed reports. They're really data heavy. They allow everyone to see exactly what our thought process is and how that's changing over time. We're holding proficiency panels with like-minded organizations. We held one last month, 2 months ago, at the Do Good Data Conference in Chicago, working with Bridge International and World Reader in order to establish proficiency standards across the international education space that currently do not exist. And that's kind of where something like 45 words per minute by the end of 3rd grade came out of this. And the last piece is that we actually have integrated our centralized database system with a BI solution, a business intelligence solution, in order to visualize our outcomes and also make this public. So we're working with Tableau Public so that anyone can access the outcomes from our program. These are updated every 2 weeks. And anyone can actually download the raw data sets and do analysis themselves. So we've opened up all of our data, and this is really exciting for us because we want to engage in more partnerships with others. Wow, I talked really fast because I'm almost at the end. Plenty of time for questions. Some of the really exciting things we're doing in the near future is we are starting to collect Ereader Analytics. So this allows us to see things like the time of day that students are reading, which files they're accessing, so which books they're accessing to read, how many pages they've read, and then what we want to do is correlate that data back to their end of year results and write different regression models in order to understand how many hours of reading they have to do in order to see the outcomes that we're looking for. Predictive modeling, not only within eReader data collection, but also we're looking to collect more high-frequency data in the form of formative tests. So we're building an application that will allow teachers to take their tablets and administer short quizzes within the classroom that will kind of tell them, you know, this group of students, they're low-level learners, while this group of students is a bit more advanced. And then they can target their learning, which we teach them to do in these coaching sessions and workshops, to those students on an individualized basis. So that's not only going to help our teachers be better teachers, but we're going to be collecting all of that data monthly so that we can correlate what the outcomes of short term quizzes are with the end of year assessments, and beyond that pass rates, and beyond that progression rates. So we can write those machine learning algorithms in order to predict future outcomes. And another piece of that is distance learning. So how I sort of introduced this is 250 million children are lacking basic reading, writing, and math skills. Well, we're never going to have the resources to address 250 million children without figuring out how to scale. And part of that is distance learning. So we want to be able to implement our programs in a number of schools from afar. So working on tech-based solutions in order to train teachers within their schools without them necessarily coming to us is kind of a big component of this program. I didn't even push the button. Are you doing that? To sort of wrap that up, our end goal is government adoption. We want governments to adopt our teaching methodologies and to understand the importance of literacy within public primary school systems. And we want to teach them the right way of incorporating these methodologies. I feel like I had another piece and I'm forgetting it, but ask questions. That is it for POP. Thanks.
Great stuff. Questions? All right.
One of the first things you mentioned was empowering your teachers to be better teachers.
Right.
Are you doing anything to bridge the communications between the teachers and the parents to get parents involved too?
Yeah, we're starting to look at more community-based programming. This program is so new, so it's starting with teachers. We're also looking at social and emotional learning programs within the classroom, which we will be the first organization to actually do that outside of the US, and we're piloting that right now in Ghana. But that involves really influencing the communication between a teacher and their students with positive reinforcement. And parents have to be taught that as well. So when we do a lot of these workshops at the beginning of the school year, they involve inviting the entire community to learn why we're doing this sort of programming, what we believe the impact of that program will be, and we're definitely teaching parents how to support that as well. The e-readers that we provide to students are a one-to-one model. Students are encouraged to take those e-readers home and actually read to their families and get their families involved. On the data front, what I would like to see us do in this next year is actually provide results back to students, sort of like a report card, but we need to be working more with communities to show them what the impact of our programs are in order to get that community buy-in. Yes. Oh.
Just two kind of related questions. Pencils of Promise only international, and the program that you mentioned, Tangerine, is that also only international, or do you do domestic?
We don't do domestic work. The early grade reading assessment developed by UNAID and the tech-based platform is on Tangerine. To my knowledge, is only used internationally, and it's used by a number of different international organizations.
Hi. I've noticed on your website you guys have a very prominent recurring donor campaign that you have running right now, and I'm just curious. I work in Austin, Texas, very local grassroots Meals on Wheels program.
Yeah.
We're very much working in the community. How do you market to your funders? Who are your funders, and how do you reach those individual donors, being that you are international?
Right. So I'm glad that our head of development here, Susie, she actually created our recurring donor campaign that we run on Classy, but all of our funding is currently domestic. Most of our funding is currently domestic. We're looking at some ideas with what to do within the countries that we work. But POP started off 8 years ago as an organization that really tapped into peer-to-peer funding. In our first year of operation, every donation was under $25. That's how we built our very first school. So we've always been really strong with our brand and really strong with tapping into the peer-to-peer funding space and the networks of individuals. We kind of do a lot of webinars and share ideas surrounding that, but I'm not a specialist in that. If you have any questions, Susie's your woman.
Hi, Jackie. Well, hello. I'm just curious, you mentioned that you had that report card that updates data every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear a little bit more about where that information is coming from.
Yeah.
And how.
Well, Mark, it comes from Salesforce. Crazy, right? Mark works for Salesforce, everybody. So we built out the Salesforce Impact application, which used to be the tracking all of our school builds originally because of fundraising efforts, to be honest. We wanted to be able to tell a donor, the school that you built is located here, and here's when it broke ground, and here's how much it cost. And so we built out one object in order to hold that sort of information. And we realized that it was working so well for us to communicate back and forth with our donors that why shouldn't we expand that to encompass all of our programs and all of this data that we've been collecting. So now it holds information regarding every single student, every teacher, every test we've administered, every attendance data collection point, and we're able to analyze that all in one area. We integrated that with Tangerine. They do provide a Salesforce integration in order to better visualize that data. Tangerine Public, we have to sort of build those visualizations in Tangerine desktop platform and then publish them over to Tangerine Public. So there isn't actually a direct integration between Tangerine Public and Salesforce, which is why that has to update every 2 weeks. That's a manual push on our end in order to update that data. Does that fully answer your question? Cool.
Great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about organizationally, in your organizational development, and sort of the, not only the why, but the how, when you went from that transition of being sort of grassroots, building schools, to this, amplifying your work in these new areas. Can you go back for us?
Yeah.
And what was kind of essential in helping you fulfill that vision and that ramping up?
I think it really has to do with constantly asking ourselves what our mission is and how we're supporting that mission. So after a while, we had built over 200 schools. Programming actually started taking place probably after 150 schools. But we were asking ourselves, what truly is the impact of building infrastructure? Are we able to measure impact? We can collect certain data points, but it was really hard to prove that what we were doing was impacting literacy outcomes. And we always kind of had a plan to establish ourselves with governments, and the more we started working with education ministries, the more we started learning about what the pain points are within the school. So it just took years of really understanding the communities and understanding the space. And knowing that we're working in public education systems, and we work in some very tricky countries such as Laos, where the government is a bit nervous of what we're doing. So we figured part of the answer to that was doing things like reinforcing teaching methodologies. We're constantly revisiting our theory of change, and that's how we know which key performance indicators to sort of pick out and focus on. But I think it really has to do with just being an emergent learning organization and constantly asking yourself if you're doing the right thing. 3 years ago when I was speaking on stages, I was saying, we're going to build 500 schools by 2015. Well, we didn't, and we're okay with that because we realized that now that we're investing in programs within the schools, it's okay to say we're going to shift our resources and start focusing on this area more, because it will create more of an impact than building 500 schools really quickly.
I work out in Memphis with an organization that trains underserved high school students and introduces them to study abroad opportunities. And we're actually working with a group of 20 students, and our next program is for Ghana, West Africa. So okay. I was wondering if you guys have thought about any or start initiating any projects to incorporate American students within your educational model in Ghana.
We just piloted our first version of this working with Columbia's SIPA College, where we had a number of students in Ghana looking at another program that we run, our WASH program, Water Sanitation Hygiene Program, and they sort of did a small research project looking into the outcomes of that. So we're definitely open to partnerships more than ever before, and we want to work with different colleges and students to look at our programs. So we should chat.
And one more question.
Hi. I'm Jason Cass with Toilets for People. And what I'm wondering, we do toilets overseas oftentimes in schools. And I'm wondering if you have, as part of your program, maybe in the future, ideas for vocational programs of having groups come in to teach, maybe high schoolers how to build toilets or how to build infrastructure for their community.
Right. That's not something we've looked into yet. So and this kind of addresses your point as well, we've constantly asked ourselves what our focus is. We used to do a scholarship program. We still kind of talk about our scholarship program because we're halting it and kind of phasing it out. But we have realized that our focus needs to be in primary school systems, whereas scholarships was that progression from primary to secondary school. And you know, we know that in order to have more of an impact, we have to keep ourselves narrowed as an organization. So although we're opening ourselves up to more partnerships with secondary schools or partnerships with high schools or working on community-based programming, we're going to narrow our focus and allow others who are experts in that space to tackle it from that end.
Thank you so much, Jackie, and to
Thanks,
the other
guys.
two speakers, John Peterson and Charlie Rick.